Hey viewers, my name's Cara. I'm your host for Tuesdays on the Pagan Perspective. Happy new Gregorian calendar year! This week we're talking about the calendar year and also a little bit of reintroduction because it's a new calendar year and this is when we have new substitutes will be joining us at the end of the month, so this is kind of when we do that kind of reintroduction thing. But this week's topic actually comes from me, inspired by Thorn Coyle and a blog post that she shared on her Facebook page. So the New Year's part of the topic comes from me, and then the rest of it came from viewer Kenny Williams, who just asked a couple of reintroduction stuff about our path type things. So the subs this month will also be answering the same questions, and the new subs will be focusing on introducing themselves and their path and touching on the New Year's stuff. The rest of us will be talking about the New Year's stuff. So, the first question. So this is inspired by Thorn's blog post, which I will link to. I also did a blog in response to this idea, which is what then inspired me to ask this of the whole collab. So I will link to my blog post as well, which will go more in depth into what I'm saying here, and if you'd like to read it instead of listen to me talk. So, the first question, do you celebrate the Gregorian calendar year? The change of that. I do. And some people have asked me before, why do you do that? Because that's not the pagan New Year. Well, I do because it's the civic calendar year that we use. It's how we organize our lives. It is a created system. I understand that. It's just a system that we came up with to tell the time, and there used to be other systems that we used, and other religions and things like that use different calendar systems, and I get that. But because this is the civic calendar that we use, I do recognize it, and just usually, go to some kind of party like, yay. But as you'll read, I actually felt a bigger, palpable change in the change from December 31st to January 1st, 2016, which was just cool. And I think that's because I did it my own way this time, and I didn't go to a party, and I wasn't on the phone with all my different family members at midnight at different time zones saying Happy New Year's. I did it my own way, and I was present, and I was away from my devices, and I really felt like, boom, this is a new day. Every day is a new day, but it was big, so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed celebrating it that way. The next thing I wanted us to talk about is, when is the new year in our path that we recognize? Because some people celebrate the new year at Rosh Hashanah. Some people celebrate it at Samhain. Others may not feel like it's really the new year until Imbolc. So when is it for you? When is it for me? When is it for us? And as I mentioned in the blog post that I will link, I've really been thinking about this year. And for me, I kind of think of it as yuletide. And it's not, I don't know if it corresponds with any of the other pre-accepted yuletide date systems, but this is how I feel, that yuletide and kind of the beginning into the new year begins for me some days before Yule, before the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, and continues through Christmas Eve and Christmas, which I do participate in celebrations of with my Catholic family because they celebrate Christmas Eve is the big one for us. And then they just did like a normal dinner on Christmas Day, but I usually don't celebrate Christmas Day. I usually just go to dinner for Christmas Eve, and that's when my family opens all the presents from the extended family. And then Christmas Day was usually reserved for immediate family, which now is just like me and my cat, or maybe my brother, maybe my mom if she's in town, but we're all scattered, continues through the new year, and goes a little bit past the new calendar year. That's how I feel my Yuletide is. And I actually want to celebrate Befana this year, which is Epiphany, January 7th. Where is she? There's Befana. She's up there. You can't really see her in the frame. But I got a little Befana this year around Samhain, and so I wanted to celebrate her day this year. So that kind of whole time is Yuletide to me. To me, Samhain feels like the closing of the previous year, but that day, that time to me does not feel like the beginning of the new one. it's definitely a very nice, like, coming to the end, slowing down, closing down kind of thing. And then Yuletide is like reflection, stuff like that. And then I really start feeling like, okay, things are becoming the new year after Christmas, right around the Gregorian calendar, New Year, and then into Imbolc. But not always all the way until Imbolc, you know. Like right now, this year, I feel it around now. But it depends. That was a longer explanation than I thought it would be. Oh well. Do you partake in New Year's resolutions? No. I never really did. Like, I guess I usually tried to come up with goals for the year. Like, I'd be like, I want to see more theater this year, and I want to do more theater this year, and I want to try to develop a personal practice this year. Like a daily practice. I've said that every year, and it's always a struggle. I don't know. I just do it at times, and then it falls away at times. But I've never really done resolutions where I was like, I resolved to definitely do this year. I've just always had goals of what I would like to do more of in the year. And for the most part, I've done that. It's not constant, but usually when I have a goal in mind of something I want to do, I do a little bit more of it each year. Even with the daily practice thing. I don't have a daily practice, but I do a lot more of it each time I think about it. So that's cool. So instead, what Thorn's blog post is about is not participating in resolutions, which seem to kind of just be betting against ourselves. People always say, I'm going to do this, but then as soon as they don't do it, they give up on it. Not everybody keeps going. Kind of like when you're meditating and you're trying to clear your mind or let thoughts go. A thought comes to your mind and you're supposed to acknowledge the thought and then let it go. That's kind of how I feel when I'm trying to do something that I've resolved to do, or just when I'm being mindful or when I'm meditating. If you stop, if you miss a day, just acknowledge that it happened and keep going. Take the practice back up. But not everybody does that with resolutions because they tend to be something that people expect to break. That's what she discusses that in her blog, so read that. So instead, she talks about setting an intention for the year. One of my good friends that I just made at Witch Camp this past November was talking to me in conversation and talking about his intentions for the previous few years. And at the time, I didn't think about it as though like, oh wow, he sets an intention for the year, but he's been doing that for a while and he was talking to me about it. So when I read Thorn's post about it, I thought, oh, yeah, that's what my friend is doing what they do. And I like that idea. So I blogged about it, and I haven't come up with a specific intention that is like a word or a phrase or anything like that, but what I did in my blog is I went through a bunch of thoughts about where I am. So you're welcome to read this. I'm going to read through a couple of them now. It's up on my computer. So in the blog post, I talked about all of the shifts that I went through in 2015, which I alluded to and talked a little bit about on my personal channel. So if you missed that, I really kind of lay them out in the blog post, finally. So the 3 shifts that I feel like I went through were, I call them crow medicine, my witch self, and my bone lessons. Those were my 3 shifts. And then some lessons that I want to keep in mind and keep working on into 2016 include those shifts, as well as love is a big one. Love as a force, as an energy, as the concept, the energy of what it is, has been really big in my life and in my path for the past few years. And I definitely want to keep exploring that and expanding that. Listening to the universe, answering those messages, answering those calls from the universe did a lot for me in 2015. I want to continue to do that. And then some other little ones, some that have to do with witch camp, some that don't. And just living like a witch. You may be familiar with people, I see this a lot from my Christian friends and family members, talking about how they want to live their lives so that everything in their life shows that they are a Christian. And I really truly feel that for my identity as a witch. I want to live my life in all ways that shows that I am a witch, that I am someone who recognizes the magic in life and uses that knows how to kind of work the energy of what's going on in my life and use it for the better, and that I'm in control of what's going on in my life and I can affect positive change. So that is a huge one for me as well. And I came up with some ritual intentions that I put in the blog post. One is a quote from Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes as I heard it in the audiobook version of her work, The Dangerous Old Woman. And it is, "Live in ways that are sure to horrify the few and inspire the many." That is a heck of an intention, I think. So that's one of the things that I listed. And some things that I want to work on developing in 2016 are my art, my relationships with my allies, deity, and the universe at large, my sense of self, being Cara, being a witch, my place in the overall community, and my place with myself and my personal practice, and my connection with water and earth, the receptive elements. That is a witch camp thing. I will be talking about that in the future. I have this list of all these different things that I want to make videos of on my personal channel in 2016. So I'll be talking about my challenges that I did in 2014. I'll be talking about stuff that I learned at witch camp. I'll be talking about some practical skills, stuff like that. So, I haven't chosen a specific intention to set, but that's my blog about it. And whatever it is, it's definitely going to be about love. It's going to be about my sense of self, myself as a witch, and bringing that to my communities and the world at large. You know, whoever's there for it, whoever is the listening audience, whoever's here for it, just bringing that to everyone, not just pagans, not just witches, but these things are things that anyone can benefit from, and I want to bring that to people in a way that isn't scary and doesn't feel exclusive, like if you're not pagan, you can't do. No. These are universal human things, I feel. And I'm also still reading a lot of archetypal stuff, a lot of goddess worship stuff, and that's kind of where I am, what I'm doing. So now, Kenny's questions, briefly, this is getting long. Kenny's first question is, are you Wiccan or are you some other kind of path, and how would you define your path at this time? My path comes from a Wiccan-ish base. There are elements of my path that some people would look at and say, Wicca. And there are other elements to it where people are like, not Wicca. Because I've always been an eclectic solitary practitioner, so I've never been totally in line with any of the traditional Wiccan traditions. That was redundant. But there are some elements of that. So I do still identify with that word as part of my path description, but it's not the whole thing. I identify as a pagan, more specifically a neo-pagan, and these days I'm really more identifying as a witch, even more than I am pagan. That's kind of the more salient identity for me right now. I'm also a Unitarian Universalist. I attend a Unitarian Universalist church, and I am getting more involved in reclaiming, and that community specifically, that feels, very, very close to spiritual home, if any. And again, I'll talk about that more on my personal channel in my vlogs about that. And his other question is, what kind of magic do we practice? Is it folk, ceremonial? So for me personally, my magic practice tends to be folk or natural magic. And some people I have heard describe it as hoodoo because it's very much, I use what I have, and I may go out into nature and just create a spell or create a ritual just based on the things at hand in nature. And so some people I have heard describe that as hoodoo, but I am not familiar enough with the practices of Vodun and hoodoo and the differentiations between them to call it that. So I will say that it is probably related to that because that's what I've been hearing a lot of, but that's not how I define it. I just think of it as natural magic or folk magic or DIY, impromptu, and also celestial magic, magic that has to do with deity and the divine. I do a bit of that. I don't identify anything that I do as ceremonial magic, but some people have been telling me different things about the differences between those terms that I didn't know before. So it's kind of like, you know, whatever. I just do my thing. We have done videos pretty recently, within the past year, about folk and ceremonial magic and what we think about those terms and stuff like that. So you definitely want to check out those as well. I can link to mine. I can link to the playlist if there is a playlist. If not, I'll make one. And please remember, you can always check our channel uploads here on the Pagan Perspective channel, or our blog at paganperspectivecollab.blogspot.com. It is not all the way up to date to today with all the links, but all of the past year's videos you can search there. You can use the find function on your computer to find keywords and find some other things that we've done that way, if that's easier than looking at the channel for you. That's another option. So please remember that's available. And we are, as I'm making this video, still in the process of voting on the new subs, but I am so very excited to have new subs at the end of this month. I wish we needed more than 2 spots filled, because we got so many excellent submissions and more people who wanted to audition but missed the deadline, and you know, it's just, wow, so many of you have so much to offer, and I am so grateful that you thought of us, that you want to be part of this community. And regardless, I think we all met some new people through the auditions who we will begin following, people that we can recommend to you, and you know, if you don't already know them, because there are a lot of people that I didn't already know. And I just love this community. I love all of our little, you know, the pagan YouTube community is fantastic. And I love you all. And I hope you have a good new year whenever it started for you. And enjoy your life. You know, I'll see you around. I'll see you next week. Don't forget to be awesome. Blessed be. And goodbye.